Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hello and welcome to Quick Shot Reviews. Sorry I've not been as active recently on any of my channels. I've not been 100%, and I've also had a lot of other stuff going off as well. But here I am back again, watching some streaming movies because I've only just renewed my subscription to the cinema, and at the moment there's not much on apart from the Marvels, which I would absolutely go and see, except it's opening weekend as I'm recording this, and it's going to be absolutely packed, and I can't do this weekend. So there you go. That's my reasoning. I'm sticking to it. So we're going to be looking at, as it says on your screen, and for those who are listening on the podcast, What Lies Beneath, a 2000 year old film. No, it's not. It's a year 2000 film, starring Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer, two big names in cinema at the time. It also stars Miranda Otto as Mary Fleur, Catherine Town as Caitlin as well. It's directed by Robert Zemeckis. And let's talk about the director for this one, because quite frankly, his credentials are absolutely incredible. We're talking about films like Back to the Future that he's directed. We're talking about Forrest Gump. We're talking about, let's have a look, shall we? Let's go down here. Back to the Future series, A Christmas Carol, the 2009 one, Polar Express, Castaway, Contact, Tales from the Crypt, Forrest Gump, Death Becomes Her, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Just absolutely amazing credentials. And then he comes out with this, What Lies Beneath, a ghost story. I remember going to see this at the cinema, actually, and I think it was around the time where, well, it was the time when I just turned 18, so going to see this in the cinema was a new thing for me, because obviously I'd only just turned the age I could to go and watch horror movies, and it's looking back on it, I don't think I enjoyed it as much as I did when I rewatched it a couple of days ago, simply because I didn't appreciate movies as much back then, and I probably should have appreciated them more because I didn't see as many of them. They weren't as readily available. When films came out at the cinema, you had to wait 3 years for them to be re-released on TV. So I went back and watched this on recommendation, and I was not disappointed whatsoever. So let's run down the blurb as it's written. Norman Spencer is a university research scientist, and he's growing more and more concerned about his wife Claire, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, a retired concert cellanist who a year ago was involved in a serious auto accident and who has just sent her daughter Caitlin off to college. Now, Claire reports hearing voices and witnessing eerie occurrences in and around the home, around their lake in Vermont. Seeing the face of a young woman reflected in the water. An increasingly frightened Claire thinks the phenomena has something to do with the couple living next door, especially since the wife has disappeared, without apparent explanation. At her husband's urging, Claire starts to see a therapist. She tells him she thinks the house is being haunted by a ghost. His advice: try and make contact, enlisting the help of her best friend Jody and a Ouija board. Claire seeks to find the truth of what lies beneath the lake. So, what lies beneath? Like I said, I didn't really appreciate it first time round. I absolutely loved it this time. Having an appreciation of how films are made and how things are shot, the sound design, not just the fact that it's exciting and it's got good dialogue and it's got good set pieces. This has some really good set pieces that I didn't pick up back in the year 2000, and I'm really disappointed in myself for that. But then I wasn't so much into movies at that point in time. It was just a case of happening to go somewhere and seeing a movie. But yeah, this film is shot beautifully. The setting, we are in the horror community, horror enthusiasts, whatever you want to call us. We have a thing about things being grey, blue, teal, red on box art. This is exactly that. But in this film, one of the big things I picked up is that everything is that colour. It it reflects the water, and it does add a lot to this film. And not only that, but you've got some really convincing performances from Michelle Pfeiffer, who is the victim of a car crash and clearly has some PTSD. Packing her daughter off to college, husband who is a research scientist trying to get his research paper done so that obviously he can pay the bills and things like that, while his wife seems to be going insane. He doesn't believe anything she's saying, and it starts off as a ghost story and builds to a wonderful crescendo where, unless you're very skilled or you've seen this film before or read a synopsis, you probably wouldn't get. And that's what's missing in modern day films and cinema. Um, Robert Zemeckis does a fantastic job with this film. It's very different, obviously, to his previous films, Roger Rabbit and Back to the Future, the ones that he's most famous for. But this one, it changes a little bit. Obviously, he has credentials, having directed some Tales from the Crypt. I used to love that when it was on TV, and yeah, it's just really good. It's a really solid, creepy thriller, and it's old-fashioned scary movie. There's no jump scares here. It's really old-fashioned, and the scares don't necessarily come from the ghost story either, which makes it even better. And you're guessing all the way through. I'd completely forgotten what happened in this movie, but when it's actually revealed, it's very good. And like I say, it's backed up by performances from two of the greatest to ever grace the silver screen. The suspense is there. There are some wonderful panning shots around the house, keeping it decidedly creepy and close to the action. And some great panning shots moving from floor to floor. Certainly in one scene where something is happening and it involves water, and it's like it's almost like a race against the clock. It turns a bit Saw-ish in this case, which is incredible because Saw wasn't thought of for another 10 years. Oh no, 10 years, 4 years after this film was released. So, yeah, What Lies Beneath, really good psychological, paranormal thriller and a mystery as well. Has all of those elements in it, and it's done incredibly well. And it's just fantastic. It explores so many different themes that weren't explored in 2000 that are just overdone these days. I'm not saying they're not important things to discuss, but yeah, they're overdone these days. And yeah, it just shows the credentials of this movie, the credentials of the director, and I will say it again, the credentials of the actors that have taken part in it. Great film. Fully recommend it. It is on streaming services, especially the one with a D and ending in plus. And yeah, it's 20th Century Fox. So yeah, I think you can guess from that, can't you? Which streaming service it's on. And that streaming service in particular has got some fantastic horror stuff on there. And Disney horror? Sorry, I said the word. Beep, 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 beep. Uh, yeah, you wouldn't put the two together, would you? But there you go. If you go in and find it, you've got X Files on there as well, which I'm thoroughly enjoying watching. Such a great show. And yeah, just reliving stuff because I'm having a bit of a midlife crisis, I suppose. Remembering all the stuff that I used to love when life was a bit simpler. Anyway, speaking of simple, it's dead simple to follow, subscribe, like, leave a comment on the video. Go and follow us on X, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm not on TikTok yet. I'm pretty much just refusing to do that at this point, and if it wasn't for certain things, I'd probably get rid of Facebook as well. But there you go. I will see you next time, film fans. Goodbye.
Hiya.